Hello and welcome to the Limitless Landscapers podcast. I'm Paula and I'm with
Charlotte. So today we're talking about a recent show that we exhibited at and learnings from it. So let's get into it.
As the co-founders of the Landscaper Circle, we help you get more money, time and freedom to become limitless through our experiences as fellow landscapers and our tried and tested methods. If you want help with your marketing, managing or growing your business, you've definitely come to the right place. If you're a landscaper, garden designer or supplier to the industry, then hit subscribe so you never miss an episode. Now, let's get back to the show.
So I think it's important to know why we're doing this podcast. We're doing this podcast because when at the show, so many amazing people walked around and said how much they enjoy our open conversations, the fact that we don't talk about things in like our own experiences, good and bad, because there's plenty of success stories out there, but not a lot of instances where things have gone wrong or things have failed and what you guys can learn from it. And we always have those conversations. So I think that's why we're doing this podcast, so that you guys can learn from it. And it just doesn't feel right not doing it.
Yeah, 100%.
So I think the first lesson that you can learn from our recent show is what you sell is what you sell. Now, by that, I mean, we said we were going to do a joint stand, which we did, and it was awesome. But there are several issues along the way. And whenever we brought those issues up, it was, well, we don't normally do a split stand. We don't normally do a joint stand. These issues are because we don't normally do joint stands if you look at our terms and conditions. Now, the problem therein lies when you've been invoiced, when you've paid for things, and that has never been an issue before, as an end user, you get quite miffed off. And it's not necessarily the instances, it's the principle behind it. And I think for you guys in design and landscaping businesses, there could be an example of that where you've strayed from your core offering just to get the client in.
Yeah, so it's kind of sticking to what you know. And sometimes you can feel pressured to just say yes and worry about how you're going to deliver later. I would suggest not doing that and being quite clear with what you offer, you know, everything surrounding your offer, what you're selling, what you're delivering, what you can deliver on and what you can deliver on well, and not straying from that, because this is obviously where the issues arose. The show doesn't normally allow joint stands, but they never stopped to say, actually, no, you can't have one. They still sold it to us and was happy to take the money. So ultimately, if they're going to do that, I still expect a certain level of service. And that's the same with your clients. If you deviate from your core offer and service and you say you can offer something, so maybe potentially you don't do water features, but you said you will install one for this particular client and you've done it and it's not very well done, and you say, well, we don't normally do it. Well, that's not really the client's problem. That's your problem. You decided to do it. So you should have either learned how to do it or subcontracted it to someone who could, or just said it's nothing to do with us, fine. You know, we can't offer that service because we're not confident in being able to deliver it to our high standards. So we can recommend someone or you can find someone yourself. So it's the same principle. We're not very happy, but it's apparently our fault because we asked for a joint stand. So that's lesson number one, really.
Yeah, and I think if you're going to do that, saying that to someone is the most aggravating thing, because when you've probably not told them that you can't do water features. We were never told that they don't normally do split stands. So I think sometimes you can, as you say, feel pressured or think about the money versus actually the follow-up or the actions behind it that you've got to take.
Yeah, because everyone seems to forget about the customer service element. And when things go wrong, it's really how you deal with that rather than because the actual problem.
When someone comes to you frustrated, we had numerous frustrations. When someone comes to you, it's how you deliver. So
this is kind of learning point two.
Yeah, this is learning point two about good customer service and winning a customer back. So we all have those clients that are upset, but I know that a lot of people are stressed and I know a lot of people are, busy, but rather than just go, oh, they're being, an idiot, actually hear what they've got to say. And also, if they're really upset, try to understand why. I know that sometimes it can be like, oh, well, they're just shouting at me or they're just, really angry. And they're coming to me with this aggression, but there's probably a reason behind it 9 times out of 10. And if you listen to them, you can then understand why and then how to make it better.
Yeah, it's kind of listening and understanding their frustrations, because although we've all had them, I've had multiple customers like this that really frustrate you. They're not quite on the same level. They've got issues with everything. They're picky, but it's not really about their issues. It's about the underlying thing that they're annoyed with. And it would probably be something that they're not picking about. It would be something else, And really, the chance to then turn it around is the way you deal with how, when they bring those frustrations to you, how you deal with that. So if you just say, well, you're not interested because read our terms and conditions, or you're not really listening to them or hearing them or trying to put yourselves in their position, then they're just going to get even more frustrated and you're not going to be able to turn it around. And you'll probably end up with non-payment issues and things like that at the end of the job. Whereas if you try and be empathetic, you try and see things from their point of view, they might not always be right. I don't believe that the customer is always right. That's not true at all. However, if you have an honest conversation with them and listen, and then try to reflect back, like, these are your frustrations, how can we put this right? What is the solution in your mind? And then you can say, well, in our mind, this is how it would work. It's a much better conversation than just, well, it is what it is, or read our terms and conditions, or what do we have?
Yeah, well, I mean, a classic example was we had issues with the show guide and not being listed on the website and loads of other things. And for that, the issues isn't the show guide, it isn't the website. It's the disorganization, the lack of communication, and the fact that I had to chase everything. And if I wasn't so prolific and Paula wasn't so prolific in shows, then we wouldn't have even been featured on the website. So although people may be coming to you with, oh, it's, you know, this slight curve on the paving, it's not the curve on the paving, it's the quality and it's the investment and they've put their money in. It's always more the principle, I think, than the actual individual elements.
Yeah.
One of their values or something that they believe has been crossed. And then I also think that when you have a client who is really upset or really angry, and they're coming to you in a, you know, concise manner like I did, and I went over and gave them feedback, and I said, I don't think we're going to ever exhibit again. We've never had this bad of an experience with all of these issues. You've then got to win the client back saying how I can make this better. We got told, well, if you're not going to, then that's your choice. Well, how is that inspiring? Do you know what I mean? That's not
inspiring. It makes you feel like you are undervalued. And I think that can be a lesson learned for all of us. If you act like that in that way, and that's your response, then the client's just going to feel like, well, why the hell have I given you my money? Because you don't value it. You don't value me as a client. You don't value the money that I've just spent with you. And yes, okay, an exhibition show isn't as much as a driveway patio or garden creation. However, it's still a lot of money, particularly to small businesses like us who are, you know, just trying to get out there in front of people, help people and support other businesses. And to not be supported by the people that you're paying to be there is quite a kick in the teeth, really.
Yeah, and it's just, if you're in that position with a client currently, just ask them, okay, how can we make this better? If you don't have any ideas yourself on how to make things better, then just ask them, because they may have an idea, they may not have an idea, but they're coming to you because they're frustrated, and ultimately they don't want to feel angry or upset. I don't want to feel angry or upset. I just want to be able to have a conversation and make things better.
Ultimately, you want to be heard and you want a solution to be offered. No one wants to go away feeling undervalued, feeling like your custom was basically nothing to them and completely unheard, like they haven't listened.
No.
And then they don't really care. So that's fine. Hence why we're doing this podcast. No one cares about your staffing issues. No one cares if you're having issues getting your staff to come to site, or they've got sickness or whatever, or you can't find the staff to deliver. They don't care. Same as I don't care that this particular business has had multiple staff changes. But anyway, I don't give a shit. I just want a solution for me, the client. So bear that in mind. When you're saying, oh, it was so-and-so who did that. No, it's your business. Your business takes on that. It may have been so-and-so who's left 3 months ago, or, you know, yes, you can say, unfortunately, that member of staff, you know, wasn't quite up to scratch, he's left, but I will happily rectify that for you.
Yeah.
You follow up with a solution. I don't really care about your staffing issues, and your clients don't either.
And I think the final lesson that I took from this is having everything in writing. We booked the stand for about $4,000. And then we were told later on that you've got to pay for the shell scheme walls. Now, I've done multiple shows in the UK, at the Excel and abroad. And if you have a shell scheme, the price you pay for the stand space always includes the walls, the carpet, and the name board at the front. Never have I ever been told I have to pay another $2,000 to get walls on the stand, which also made me laugh, because if the stand next to you that joins you, they pay for walls. If I pay for walls and the stand behind me pays for walls, they're getting 3 lots of payments for 1 set of walls. So I had in writing that when we were confirming the stand, I said, please, can you confirm that that is 3 walls? And I had that in writing. And they said, yes, luckily. So then they had to cover the cost of the walls. Now, I know so many people, and again, with other people there, they were extremely frustrated because they didn't know that that was the standard at the Excel, and that's normally the case, that it is paid for within your stand cost. So they had to then pay extra on top, which for me is insane and ridiculous. You're already getting £4,000 for what for? Just the plot, essentially, which I get that there is they've got to make money. But ultimately, that would have been £7,000 nearly for a 4x3 slot, which is obscene. It's extortionate. Yeah, I've never paid that for a shell scheme stand in my life, and I will never pay that in my life. So I think having everything in writing, whether it's from manufacturers that you're having supply issues with, or say you phoned up a supplier and they have a delay on a delay on stock issue. I would always get that in writing so that if you have an issue with the client, you've got confirmation from the supplier.
Yeah, I also think even more important, and I see this all the time, and it's something that I'm hot on in my business now, not before, there's many lessons to be learned there, but variation of contracts. So when a client says, can you just do X, Y, and Z? We've done it where we've put stuff in for free, and then of course, something goes wrong with that, and then you get a bit annoyed because you're like, oh, well, I've done something for free. They should be grateful. Well, they're never grateful. So what I always say now is variation contracts. If they add anything to their job or onto the quote or change anything on the quote, it has to have a variation of contract. Or if we haven't started the build yet, it will be a requote. And then they have to sign that requote. I use Docusign for all my documents now. So it's signed online, you get a copy, they get a copy. And essentially they have to sign away the changes, because if you go ahead, and it's happened to me, you do the changes they've asked, say they said they want to add, I don't know, 5 square meters of paving, you do it. There's obviously a cost in labour and materials there, and then they don't want to pay you for it after. If you haven't got a variation of contract, you've got no leg to stand on. Similarly, if something goes wrong with that and you say, well, you haven't paid for it anyway because you've done it for free out of the goodness of your heart, which I know some of us do sometimes, again, it can create a really bad feeling. So just having a variation of contract just means it's very clear cut with you and the customer exactly what they're getting. The same with the quotes. If they've signed it, to say they've read it, particularly if you ask them to sign it. So with this Docusign, it really puts the emphasis on them to check and sign it, because they're signing it, they get a copy. It's not just a verbal agreement. It's signed, it's documented, and it's something you can refer back to should they say, well, I thought I was getting, I don't know, 20 meters squared, but you're only installing 18, etc. That's just a random example, but it just protects you and it protects them as well. So it's a good thing. They shouldn't feel upset doing it. I think a lot of my clients prefer it because they know exactly what they're getting. And then when they do ask for extras, and we do a variation of contract and ask them to sign it, again, they've had to read it and sign it, so they know that's the cost. It just prevents disputes of all kinds.
And I think mainly our points here are, and our learning experience are, always have clear communication and honest communication, and focus on organisation in your business. And if your client has an issue, I spent 10 minutes talking to a staff member, and all I got were excuses. And they actually said, I'm not trying to give excuses, but, and then there was no, how can I make this better for you? What's the solution? Okay, well, this is how I'm going to make sure this never happens again. There was none of that. It was just, it is what it is. If you don't want to exhibit again, don't exhibit again. And that's that. And that for me was very uninspiring. It made us not want to exhibit ever again.
Worst customer service.
Worst customer service throughout the whole entire process. And you just leave feeling like, right, well, what was the point in all of this? And the show wasn't a complete failure. We met so many of our amazing members.
Oh, it was amazing.
Yeah. And people that are in our community that listen to the podcast, as we said, that gave us some amazing feedback and followed us on social and met some great people. But it left a really sour taste in our mouth. And I think for you guys, it's that we wouldn't even be making this podcast, I don't think, if we'd had a really good conversation with them. But the reason that we're doing this is because this is such a key learning experience for you guys of how you can completely change a client experience with just one conversation.
Yeah, and I think it's really important to always think about how you're handling things. So whether that's an annoyed customer that's not paying, why, you know, it's all comes back really to really good communication and also honesty at the beginning. Because if you're honest and transparent, there's no way anyone can get really cross. I said, it's only when people are not honest, they're dishonest, and things come out and they get found out. That's when things go wrong, really. And the lack of communication is one way that can go even worse, really.
Yeah, and as always, we want you to learn from our experiences. That's why we're sharing this. And if you have enjoyed this podcast and you also want to learn from experiences from Mark Gregory, from Neville Stein, from Daniel from Nordland Landscapes, from Neville Wright, who own Kiddie Care, if you want to learn from their experiences, you can join us at Virtually Limitless. This is our online event in December, where they will all be speaking. There's networking opportunities and virtual stands, not in-person ones, where you can get show offers from our sponsors and so much more. The link for the tickets will be in the show notes. So if you are interested, if you want to look at tickets, then click that link and share us some of your experiences. Can you relate to something in your design or landscaping business about communication or something that we've spoken about before? We want to have a really open conversation about how customer service can really transform a negative experience into a positive one.
Absolutely. So ideally, you put the 6th of December in your diary, Monday, the 6th of December, jump on the link. So let's turn our experiences into a positive one with our amazing Virtually Limitless. I hope to see you there, guys. And I hope you've enjoyed the podcast today as much as it's been very cathartic for ourselves.
We'll see you guys next week.